Good evening and welcome once again to another program of Issues in the News, where we discuss the important events that will have taken place in Guyana over the past week or so. And as is the norm, we always have a packed agenda of issues to discuss. I want to begin, as I normally would do, by welcoming all of you, the viewers who are joining us on television from region number 5 and from region number 6. Welcome to another program of Issues in the News. To our listeners and viewers who are joining us on Freedom Radio from Rob Street, Georgetown, welcome to another program of Issues in the News. And last but not least, to the thousands of you who are joining us on Facebook Live, right across the length and breadth of Guyana, the Caribbean, North America, Europe, Asia, and beyond. Welcome to another program of Issues in the News. Share this program. Press the share button on your phone so that all your viewers, all your followers, all your friends, all your fans, and all those who are on your page can also join us in tonight's discussion. So share the program and let us have an engaging discussion. Shalini Lekram, Kushial Ram, Sharda Gokul, Natasha Lee, Orlette Bisoon, Moonshine, Mata Dayal, Rihanna Lux, Tara Sitaram, and so many of you. Welcome and share the live, share the program so that all your followers and all your friends can join us in tonight's discussion. Use the comment section to engage me, to ask questions, to raise issues, and to seek queries. As I said, this program must be engaging. This program must be a learning experience where we exchange vital knowledge and pieces of information with each other. That is the purpose of this program. So let me see your comments. Esther Small, my good friend, I haven't seen her in a while. Mohammed Salim, Babita, Brian, Ahmad Ali. So let me get your questions. Let me get your queries. Let me get your requests for clarifications so that we can address them in the course of the program. So yesterday we had a very important day in the national calendar of our country. Yesterday marked the commencement of the 13th Parliament of Guyana by virtue of a proclamation required for that occasion to take place under the hand of His Excellency the President. You will recall that Parliament was dissolved under the hand of the President by a proclamation for us to go to the elections to elect a new set of members for the Parliament. The Constitution requires this to be done every 5 years. So upon the conclusion of the last 5 years, the President, as the Constitution mandates him to do, dissolved the 12th Parliament and by proclamation fixed a date for elections as is required by the Constitution. Those elections were held and you, the people, voted and you elected a new complement of parliamentarians numbering 65 to constitute the 13th Parliament of Guyana. By your votes, that is what you did. And the leader of the respective lists would have been told by GCOM, based upon the results, how many seats each political party that contested the elections gained by virtue of the number of votes that each party received. And based upon that list allocation, that seat allocation, which is determined by GCOM, the party leader, the leader of the list of each political party would have been written to by the chief elections officer, informing him or her what the results were and how many seats that party would have been allocated based upon the votes received in the National Assembly. How many seats in the National Assembly that each party would have been allocated based upon the votes received at the polls. The PPP received the largest block of votes and was allocated 36 of the 65 seats. That is the largest majority won by any party since democracy and free and fair elections were returned to this country in 1992. In 2006 elections, we got a similar number. So it's the largest, along with 2006, of majorities any government has enjoyed pursuant to free and fair elections in this country. Of course, when the PNC was rigging elections from 1968 to 1985, they took over 2/3 majority on almost every occasion. They took 50-something seats on most occasions, with small numbers being allocated to the other side. That's when they were stealing your votes. Today, they have been reduced to 12 seats in the National Assembly. 12 seats. And in Democratic Guyana, this is the largest margin that a party has ever lost an election by, because they had 31 seats in the last elections, and from 31 seats they were reduced to 12. That is quite a beating for any party to have received at the hands of the electorate. And from all the utterances that we are hearing, they seem to have not learned. And we will deal with that as we go along. The Win Party got 16 out of the 65 seats. So the PPP beat both parties by quite a large number of seats at those elections. So once again, let me take this opportunity to thank all supporters of the PPP and all of you who voted to ensure that we got 36 elected members of the National Assembly. So yesterday marked the beginning of the 13th Parliament of Guyana, and the business of the Parliament began with the election of the Speaker of the National Assembly and the Deputy Speaker of the National Assembly. Mansour Nadir, the former Speaker of the National Assembly, was re-elected unopposed as Speaker of the National Assembly, and I want to congratulate him from this platform and wish him another successful tenure as Speaker of the National Assembly. Vishwa Mahadir, a colleague MP of the People's Progressive Party, was elected Deputy Speaker of the National Assembly, and he was challenged, but he won by a landslide when the votes were taken by a show of hands. So congratulations to Vishwa Mahadev, who was elected Deputy Speaker of the National Assembly. When those matters were concluded, all the parliamentarians were invited to take their oath of office, and that was done. Once again, as I did yesterday, and I'm going to repeat for the record in this program, I feel honored and I feel humbled to have been afforded another opportunity to serve in the parliament of our country. It is my 5th successive term as a MP, and it is my 3rd term as, no, 3rd term as Attorney General, but my 5th term as a Member of Parliament. Of course, we have a lot of work to do, and I pledge to continue to work faithfully and tirelessly to ensure that I represent, as part of a collective, the interest of the people of Guyana, that I represent the national interest, and that I work every day to bring national unity among the peoples of our country. We have a manifesto that we went to the elections with, and we campaign upon that manifesto. That document constitutes a contract between us, the government, and the people, and we intend to work assiduously and diligently to ensure that we deliver all the promises in that manifesto, and of course deliver more when and where possible. Our parliamentary team is a great one. It's highly diverse. We have young members as well as we have mature members. Our ethnic composition as a singular block in the National Assembly represents the ethnic composition of our country. We have a great admixture of gender, and we have, as I said, a great admixture of youthfulness as well as experience. We have 8 new members of parliament and 2 parliamentary secretaries who are considered members of parliament. So we have 10 new faces in our parliamentary lineup. In addition to the 36 elected members, we have 3 technocratic members who are members of parliament by virtue of their ministerial appointments. So they are called technocrat members of the National Assembly. While they are members of the National Assembly, they will not vote because they are non-elected members. 36 members on our side will vote, and we have 3 who will not be able to vote, but they are members of the National Assembly, unelected. And then in addition to that, we have 2 parliamentary secretaries. So we have a grand team comprising of 41 members in that house, and that is a formidable number to have in a 65-member house of assembly. In between 2020 to 2025, we had a 1-seat majority. Here we have several seats, 7-seat majority, I think, when you put the combined opposition together. So we have a large majority, and obviously with a one-seat majority, we were able to accomplish all the things that we accomplished in the 12th Parliament of Guyana. Imagine what we'll be able to accomplish with this large number in our membership in that house. So we are very strong, very resilient, very robust, very mixed. We have experience, as I said, and we have those who we are inducting for the first time. And that's the greatness of our party, its dynamism, its evolutionary character. 2 decades ago, I entered Parliament as a new parliamentarian in my 20s. 2 decades after, I would be categorized as a member of the experienced team in the National Assembly. And as I said, we have 10 new faces that we have introduced for the first time. 20 years from now, they would have acquired the experience that I have acquired. And as we go along, every 5 years, we introduce new members. And that is why we have that dynamism, and we are able to adopt and adapt, to change to meet the new challenges of an evolutionary modern Guyana. And that is why we have remained the most viable and vibrant political force in this country since 1950. The first mass-based political party that was ever formed, and today it remains the most viable and the most powerful political force in Guyana and possibly the Caribbean. That shows visionary leadership. It shows an ability to adapt, an ability to cope, an ability to understand the society, and an ability to change, to meet the new challenges. And we have done that with admirable ease. And we must salute the leadership of our party over the years. And at the helm now, it's Bharat Jagdev, our General Secretary, and he must get our salutations. And the leadership as well, and our memberships, because you understood this and you worked and supported us along the way. So look back at our manifesto, and that is what we are committed to deliver over the next 5 years. That's our commitment. We have an interesting opposition makeup. We have the PNC for the first time in its history occupying such a small space in the opposition. The PNC is normally the largest opposition bloc, whether in coalition or not. Right now it is in some type of coalition, but it only has managed to secure 12 seats. The lowest number of seats it has ever gained in the National Assembly since its beginning in national politics. So that must be a cause for them to worry about. We see one of their members being unable to read the oath without the aid of a flashlight. Now, I don't wish to disrespect our elder citizens or persons who may have some type of medical problem, but anyhow, let's move on to the other group. But we will have to look at the ability of these persons who are put there to represent the people's interest, their capacity to do so. Their capacity to do so. I don't think the um, people of Guyana would want effective, diligent, competent representation and people who are able to do so. The other party, they have no political experience. They have two persons on their side who have had prior political experience with the PNC or APNU, if you wish, Sarabo Hali and Natasha Lewis. Oh, and Don Yearwood, Don Hastings is also there. So you have three members there with some political experience. But that party is the largest bloc on the opposition benches, and they have 16 seats in the National Assembly. But they have their own problem. The leader of that list, Azruddin Mohammed, as we all know, is the subject of extradition proceedings. And as I said in an interview elsewhere yesterday, he can be described as a fugitive from the American justice system, because that is how he legally is styled under the current proceedings. It is the first time that we have a member of the National Assembly who is a fugitive from justice in another country, and who is the subject of international legal proceedings in the form of extradition. I don't think any person, any member of parliament in the Caribbean has ever been the subject of such legal proceedings. So in this regard, we are creating history, and not in a positive way, unfortunately. The 13th Parliament, by this fact alone, is entering into uncharted waters. It is already settled that the status of a parliamentarian, even if you hold the office of opposition leader or any other post in the parliament, does not confer any form of legal immunity from extradition proceedings. There is a form of immunity, but that relates to your conduct in the House. Immunity, legal immunity in relation to parliamentarians is confined to things said and done in the National Assembly. This guy is being extradited for criminal conduct that predates his entry into the National Assembly by several years. So the question of immunity in the limited form in which it applies to MPs does not apply at all. So we have to wait to see how those proceedings unfold. And we have other persons on that side, in that party, as well as the PNC, who have most of them don't have political experience. Well, in that side, I mentioned the 3 out of 16. the 13 of them have no political experience, no parliamentary experience whatsoever. The PNC have a few with with um, parliamentary experience, but I believe I can't remember who they are, excepting Ganesh Mahipal. The rest of them are newcomers too. I can't remember who else is there on that side, but it's a new set as well, largely new set. And of course, you have Amanza Desir, who squeezed through with a seat coming from being the recipient of the largest leftover votes. Our system allows for the party with the largest singular leftover vote to take the one remainder seat that would have left after the allocation to the other members. So she got a seat with basically less than the votes required for a seat. But because she was the last person standing, she got a benefit from that. Our dear friend, Mr. Nigel Hughes, and his party was absolutely decimated at the polls. Absolutely decimated. And we can dedicate a whole program as to why that happened. When we spoke, I spoke at length about the duplicitous conduct. But, you know, he knows best. But we'll deal with that at another time. I'm reading somebody, you know what's going on? The Win party has a formidable team operating fake profile accounts on Facebook. We saw that during the elections campaign, and they have not stopped. So they have this huge presence on the social media. 90% of the accounts are fakes. If you go and you look at them, they don't have any background and historical data. So you know that they were created for propaganda purposes. And they have unleashed themselves on my page. Whenever I say anything critical of Win and its leaders, they flood my page with all kinds of criticism and cuss down and abuse and vile statements. But that is the nature of their politics. So I can't say what the people can expect from this bunch in the opposition, the collective bunch. What I can tell you is that it is the most inexperienced opposition, joint opposition this country has ever had in the National Assembly since independence. This group of opposition members collectively is the most inexperienced opposition, and I'm speaking about them together, Guyana has had in its National Assembly since independence. That will not affect our performance in the government. Perhaps it may enhance our performance. A lot of misinformation is being peddled in the public domain. And it's peddled largely through ignorance. Ignorance that is, some of it self-induced, some of it deliberate, and some of it people just care not to learn. So for weeks going into the National Assembly, we heard about the election of the opposition leader and that we are trying to prevent the election of the opposition leader. All sorts of misleading and uninformed statements, ridiculous inaccuracies being peddled. When perhaps from since independence, or for the longest period, the opposition member, the election of the opposition leader takes place differently. And certainly, I know it definitely takes place differently, and certainly it doesn't take place at the same time at the first sitting of the Parliament. That's not new. That has long been our practice. And based upon what I'm reading, there is also a lack of knowledge in relation to how it is done and who does it. I read comments to the effect that President Ali must appoint the opposition leader. They are calling upon the Speaker to appoint the opposition leader. And the Constitution sets out these matters. So Article 184 says, the leader of the opposition shall be elected by and from among the non-governmental members of the National Assembly at a meeting held under the chairmanship of the Speaker of the National Assembly, who shall not have the right to vote. Full stop. There is no ambiguity. There is no lack of clarity. Simple language. This is how it is done. The leader of the opposition shall be elected by and from the non-governmental members of the National Assembly at a meeting held under the chairmanship of the Speaker of the National Assembly, who shall not have the right to vote. So it doesn't happen at a sitting of the National Assembly. So it could not have happened yesterday. I heard that there was great attempt not to make it happen yesterday. It could not have happened yesterday. It is not something that takes place at a sitting of the National Assembly, but at a meeting of non-governmental members of the National Assembly. A meeting to be convened by the clerk upon the request of the Speaker and shall be chaired by the Speaker. But before you get here, you have to know, you have to swear in the members of the National Assembly. You have to know who are the governmental members, and you have to know who are the non-governmental members. That is what was done yesterday. When that is done, then you determine, you move to this stage, which I've just outlined. So I hope that we will learn as we go along. But you have to read. We have to read. These things is not guesswork. And let me move on. And then I heard another bizarre statement made by Mr. Azruddin Mohammed. And I couldn't believe it. I heard it from someone, and then I saw a video. And this gentleman said, with a sober face, that the PPP rigged the 2025 elections and that he won the 2025 elections. Now, when I saw that, I felt sad because this is the leader of the largest opposition party in the National Assembly. And it gives you an insight into the mentality of the leader of the opposition to be. Now, if that is the mentality of the leader of the opposition to be, the putative leader of the opposition, as I described him before, it's an indictment on the people of Guyana, and it's an indictment on Guyana. It's nothing to laugh about. It's a time for introspection. It's a time for soberness. You know, there's a time for laugh, and there's a time for skin teeth. But when such a bizarre statement can emanate from a highly placed politician who appears to be sincerely persuaded that it is reality, then you have psychological problems. You have psychological disorders at play. You have flickers of delusion. You see, the PNC made similar allegations like that before. But we know that the PNC knew that those allegations were false. We know that because they had their statements of poll, and we know that they were misleading their supporters. And we told them not to do that, that the supporters will turn back against them. I said that for 5 years in this program. I said, don't lie to the people. Don't abuse the people. Don't mentally and psychologically abuse and insult your supporters like that. It will have a reaction. The people will react. They're not that stupid. You can't ill-treat people like that and embarrass and humiliate people like that, put them on the road to protest against rigging elections when you know full well that they were not rigged, that you have the statements of poll. This gentleman, he honestly believes that this is so. I looked at him, and you looked at him too. And that is the problem. I don't think that he is lying. I believe that he thinks that. And he has no basis to say it. No basis. I don't know how many polling stations he had. But he said, GCOM knows the figures. He was unable to successfully request a recount, I think. I can't remember if he got a recount granted. But he makes that statement. And you have to worry when that is the mentality of the leader of the main party in the National Assembly. And this is not a personal attack on anyone. I am speaking as a concerned citizen. One must be concerned when that is the state of mind that we are getting evidence of publicly portrayed. But people of Guyana elected him. So I know that many people want me to speak on the extradition. I have said a lot already, and it is not my intention to repeat what I've already said. But there is a lot of misinformation that continues to be peddled out there. And as Attorney General, I need to put certain things into perspective. Every Tom, Dick, Harry Lal, and their brother and sister now have become extradition experts. All kinds of things I'm seeing being published. As I said, we have spoken already. Extradition is nothing new to Guyana. It's a government arrangement that exists with many countries in the world. Guyana has it with almost all the important countries of the world, including the United States of America. A request was made to extradite Azzuddin Mohammed and Nazar Mohammed to the United States to stand trial before a grand jury of a number of important criminal offenses for which they have been charged. As I said earlier, this information cannot be new. This was in the pipeline a long time. And we, as we have done on every occasion that an extradition request has been made of us, we committed to grant the request. We are committed as a government to ensure that our treaty obligations are observed and faithfully complied with. As a government, we are duty-bound to ensure that due process and the constitutional rights of the subject of the extradition requests are respected and are observed, that the law governing extradition is complied with by the different agencies. These are guarantees that a state has to give in relation to extradition, and we are committed to ensuring that all these requirements are met. The charges that are the subject of the indictment in the US, for which these persons are being, for which their extradition is sought, are serious charges, and they are major offenses in Guyana. We had to have satisfied ourselves before the authority to proceed was issued, and that determination was made. They are largely money laundering related charges, and money laundering normally is a charge by itself, and then it is dependent on other charges. It's predicated on other charges. It's called a predicate offense. And fraud and organized crimes, racketeering, smuggling, evading of taxes, they are all of that, all of those charges are offenses against the laws of Guyana, and they all can fall under the rubric of money laundering. And if you look at our money laundering, anti-money laundering statute, you will see that it makes express references to offenses under the Fugitive Offenders Act or extraditable offenses. These are international crimes. They're crimes in Guyana as they are crimes elsewhere. It doesn't matter how they are described. I hear the bush lawyers on the road talking about all kind of equivalency, and there is no requirement that there should be equivalency. There must be double criminality. What that means, it must be a crime in the US and be a crime in Guyana. Tax evasion is a crime in Guyana. Fraud is a crime in Guyana. Whether you call it mail fraud, fraud is the dishonest, is obtaining money by deceit, by something illegal, by dishonesty. You can call it what it is. And money laundering is an offense that flows automatically for that. Just being in possession of the money that you derive from an illegal means is money laundering. These are all offenses in Guyana. And that finding has already been made by two of the important agencies in the extradition process. The government, well, three. The government of the US, through its various law enforcement agencies. The government of Guyana, through its legal advisory agencies. And a magistrate who issued an arrest warrant based upon the evidence that would have been reviewed, the documents that would have been reviewed by the magistrate. This is not a provisional warrant that came from the United States. This was a warrant issued by the magistrate. So there is already a finding, a judicial determination already made. I know a lot of views have been expressed about the way the magistrate handled the matter. I was surprised. While extraditable offenses or in extradition proceedings, bail is grantable, bail is not normally granted. And where bail is granted, bail must always bear a reasonable relationship with the offense which is charged. There must be a relationship between bail and the gravity of the offense. And I will leave it there. I want the public to understand that this process that is now ongoing is the legal part of the extradition. There is a government-to-government interaction which has commenced, and it now has traveled into the legal part of the arrangement. People have to manage expectations, or persons have competing interests, and they want to see things happen and things happen with some speed, or things happen in a particular direction. This is a legal process that must travel its course. The lawyers who are appearing for the prosecution, and this is something I want to also make clear, the lawyers who are appearing for the prosecution here in Guyana are representing the interest of the US government. Even if normally it is done by the Director of Public Prosecutions in Guyana, that is how extraditions have been done in the past. And even when that happens, the DPP of Guyana, if that office was engaged here and was representing the interest, was prosecuting, that DPP would have been representing the interest of the American government. when Guyana makes a request to the United States of America and the United States prosecutorial arm is activated, those prosecutors are appearing for the interest of the Guyana government. That is how the extradition framework works. Because these things are not understood, all manner of discussions and misleading information is being peddled out there in the volumes. I hope, I appeal to you, all of you, to manage your expectations and curb your enthusiasm from all sides. Because as I said, it's clear that different people have different interests. And you're on Facebook and on social media all day. I thought that I would express those views because I can't not speak to you on this program and don't speak a little on the extradition process. You expect me to speak on it. A journalist asked me a few questions about the law school, and they relate to how the preparations are coming. This is a massive project, and the preparations are going well. We are finalizing an agreement between the government of Guyana and the Council of Legal Education. That agreement will be signed, but that is, the fact that the agreement has not yet been signed is not holding back work. The site has been cleared, the architectural drawings are now have been submitted, and we are examining them and having discussions with the designers and the architects, and you have to have budgetary allocation done. So the process is going to take some time. The reporter asked whether students from one's law school will be transferred, would be able to take transfer to this law school when it commences operations. As I said before, this law school will be run by the Council of Legal Education. And while those matters will have to be ultimately determined by the Council of Legal Education, I do not see any great difficulty in a student transferring from one of the council's law school to another. That should not be a problem. On the 24th of October, the High Court delivered an important ruling. And you know, as I keep saying, we have a country now full of lawyers. And things that were never litigated before are now finding their way into the court system. So the Guyana Trade Union Council, who would have been around long since independence and before, long before, filed legal proceedings seeking to challenge provisions of the Police Act that prohibit members of the Guyana Police Force from joining and being part of trade unions. And they argue that the provisions of that act and the Trade Union Recognition Act are inconsistent with the Constitution of Guyana, in particular Article 147. And because of that conflict with the Constitution, the provisions of those two legislation the Trade Union Recognition Act and the Police Act, those relevant provisions should be struck down as being unconstitutional, and that police officers must be free to join a union of their choice in keeping with Article 147 of the Constitution. Well, you know that Article 147 of the Constitution deals with freedom of association and assembly. And among the things that Article 147 guarantees is the right to belong to political parties and the right to belong to trade unions and the right to enter into collective bargaining and so on. But you know, every constitutional right has limitations listed under those very rights. And these limitations essentially say that the rights that you have do not extend to these limitations, and they're listed. And you know, one of the limitations to the right of association is that the right of association, including the right to be part of a trade union, does not extend to members of the disciplined forces, members of the security forces. And that has been in our Constitution since independence. The GTUC never challenged it in all the years, but they persuaded one Darren Wade, attorney at law, to rush to the court to file this frivolity, trying to knock down provisions of the Trade Union Recognition Act and provisions of the Police Act that speak to the prohibition of police officers from joining organizations such as trade unions. Of course, I appeared along with lawyers from the AG office, and we made submissions, and we pointed out what the constitutional position is. And the judge had no difficulty in dismissing the case and making an appropriate order in relation to costs. I can't remember, I think it's $500,000, I think something like that, for this frivolous action. My operator has signaled to me that we have passed program time. I want to thank you very much for joining me over the last hour. I think we have covered a number of important issues, and please stay safe. I'll see you